I didn't tell anyone I won the lottery. Not my mom. Not my siblings. Not even my best friend. I kept it a secret for a whole year. But, as it turns out, the truth was more than just the money. It was about finding out who my family really was. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and tell us where you are listening. Your support means everything. It all started on a Friday night. I was sitting in my tiny apartment, scrolling through my phone after a long week at my dead-end job. I didn't expect much from life. I was just coasting. But that night, while I was mindlessly checking my email, I saw the notification from the lottery website. Congratulations, you've won the jackpot. I thought it was spam at first. You know how these things go. But then I opened the email, and it wasn't spam. It was real. And it wasn't just a couple thousand, no. It was $14 million at first. I stared at the screen, blinking. I felt the world spin a little. It wasn't like I had the luxury of being naive. I wasn't a person who could just believe in good things. I knew how these things work, scams, con artists, the whole deal. So, I went to the lottery website, checked the numbers, and then checked them again. My stomach dropped. I had to sit down. I was shaking, and not from excitement. I was scared. What was I supposed to do? What does someone even do with $14 million? My first instinct was to tell my mom. But then, something weird happened. I thought about how my family would react. More specifically, how they always reacted when they thought I had something they could use. My mum, always so loving on the surface, but with a kind of expectation. My brothers, the way they'd ask for favors without ever giving anything back. My dad? Well, he was more of a ghost than a dad, but I didn't expect him to change his tune now. And so, I kept it to myself. I decided I would take a different path with this money. A path where I didn't have to rely on anyone else. No one would know. No one would have any idea I had this wealth. Not even my closest friends. It would be my secret. For a while, it was just a little adrenaline rush. I would check my balance every day. I set up a few accounts, transferred the money, and then just kept living my life. For the first few months, I felt liberated. I paid off my student loans, bought a new car, and fixed up the apartment that I'd been too embarrassed to show anyone. No more worrying about bills. No more scraping together rent. But there was also this other thing. A feeling that crept in, something that got darker the more I had the money, and the longer I kept it to myself. The longer I stayed quiet, the more I noticed how differently people treated me. Take my brother, Jared. We always had a tense relationship. He was the golden child, or at least that's how he liked to think of himself. Always doing things to impress my parents, constantly looking for validation. The funny thing was, he had no idea I was doing well for myself, financially. He would call every few weeks to ask about my life, but it always felt like he was just trying to figure out if I had something he could borrow. And I'm not just talking about money. He wanted a connection, yes, but only if it came with something to gain. There was this one phone call that sticks with me. It was a couple months after I had won. And I hadn't told anyone yet. Jared had called to catch up. He talked about his new car, how his wife was looking for a better job, how his kids were doing, and how they were planning to go on vacation soon. I didn't mention anything about my finances. I didn't want him to know. You ever think about moving back home? He asked, his voice casual, but there was something in the way he said it that made me pause. I chuckled, but it didn't feel like a joke. Not really. I'm doing fine here. You sure? I mean, you know, things are getting rough for Mom. She's been having a hard time with the house. Bills are piling up. Maybe you could help out. My stomach clenched and I tried to keep my tone light. I'm sure Mom's fine. You know her, she likes to manage things herself. Jared didn't miss a beat. Yeah, but she's been asking around. You know how she is. Maybe she's just not telling you. But, hey, if you ever get a chance, you could come by and take a look. The roof's leaking, and the plumbing's been acting up. Maybe you can chip in. I let out a long breath. I'll think about it. I didn't think about it, but I did think about how his tone shifted so quickly. It wasn't a request. It was an expectation. One that felt all too familiar. And then there was my mom. Oh, my mom. She was always a loving presence, but I started noticing how she treated me differently over time. She'd drop little hints, like how things weren't as easy as they used to be. She'd talk about hard times and how it was getting tough to keep up appearances in front of friends. Every conversation started to sound like a roundabout way to ask me for money, but she never directly came out and asked. It was like a game, and I wasn't playing along. The real turning point came a few months into my quiet, rich life. My mom invited me over for dinner one night, and I decided to go. I walked into her house, and she greeted me with that familiar hug, but there was something off about it. Her eyes were a little too wide, and her smile seemed strained. You look good, she said, guiding me into the kitchen. How's everything going with you? I shrugged. It's going well. Work's okay, just the usual. She didn't seem convinced. And how's your finances? She asked, her voice almost too sweet. Still got that little budget thing going? You know, I was thinking maybe you could help with the house. The repairs are really starting to pile up. It's getting hard to manage alone. And with your brothers, well? Mom, you're fine, I said, cutting her off. I'm sure you're managing just fine. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. You know, you've always been such a good kid, never asking for anything. But with your brothers needing help, and well, you doing so well now, I just thought maybe... Mum, I said, my voice sharper than I meant it to be. I'm not your bank. I'm not here to bail you out every time something goes wrong. She blinked at me, her expression softening. But in that moment, I realized something. My family wasn't just asking for help. They were expecting it. They were depending on me to make their lives easier. They didn't see me as a person anymore. I was just a resource. And that was when it hit me. That $14 million wasn't just a windfall, it was a test. I had been living my life trying to prove to myself that I wasn't like my family, that I didn't need them, and they didn't need me. But I was wrong. I didn't need the money to feel loved. I didn't need to be the one to fix their problems. So I did something crazy. I took the money and invested it in a charity, a foundation for underprivileged kids who couldn't afford higher education. I didn't need to be the hero in my family's story. I needed to be the hero in someone else's. When my family found out, it was exactly what I expected. They were furious, but not in the way I thought. They weren't angry at me for the decision I think deep down. They knew it was the right thing. They were angry because I hadn't given them a cut. The twist? It wasn't the money that changed me. It was realizing I didn't need to rely on my family's approval. And they didn't need to rely on me. What I did was for me. And the more I walked away from the toxic parts of my past, the freer I became. In the end, I realized I didn't just win the lottery in money. I won it in peace. This version keeps the narrative largely the same, but shifts the main character's gender to a woman while maintaining the original story's essence.